All right, so this episode I would consider to be our first truly epic episode of RWBY, and the first thing that really caught me was the fact that it was like 12 or 13 minutes long, which we haven't had, of course, since the very first episode. So when I first saw the time, when it was loading up and things, the first thing that was in my head wasn't that it would be an action-based episode. I just thought, we'll get a lot of, good story elements, and I enjoyed it a lot more than that because it actually, it wrapped up the beginning of the training, and of course, at the end of the episodes, we get our three teams, and of course, I'm going to get to the very first team that they mentioned, which of course isn't, um, doesn't consist of any of the main characters. So I'll talk about that, once I actually get to that part. But this episode, it was a great action episode. I really loved it because it really did give us a lot of elements of the show. It wasn't really through story. It was, of course, action based elements. And, we got to see, the characters use their abilities. We got to see new abilities. We got to see one of my favorite things was finally being able to see Nora, fight because if you watch my other videos, I thought she might have super speed because she's always running around, and I just thought it could be possible because characters move super fast. So maybe she just fights, but she starts off. She has a rocket launcher or a grenade launcher, and then once they get into the teams actually splitting up, which I actually enjoyed. It was like the secondary team fought the giant scorpion, and then the primary team fought the giant bird. So once they split off, Jean and his team, which is now Team Juniper, which I think is really cool. Um, Nora transforms her grenade launcher into like a giant hammer, and I love how she uses it just because she's that really silly character. So she has all of this power, but she's just really funny when she does it, and like how she uses it, I think is really cool. Like it's a lot faster paced than you normally see with the character who has the giant the hammer weapon, and she's shooting herself up in the air and she's flying around and stuff, and she'd hit the scorpion and then shoot herself back to dodge really quickly. And I really enjoyed that because it like I said, compared to what you normally see with the slow heavy character, she's still really light and funny, and she shoots herself around and does all these cool flips. And I love how she like more often than not she'd be on top of the hammer when she shot it, and she'd launch herself up in the air or do spins, and she did the thing where she was like that and like shot across, and it made me think of One Piece, which it might have been a reference to like her sailing. And like I just really enjoyed finally being able to see her weapon, and it was cool that she had a grenade launcher. Her and Ren have the gun based weapons, more specifically guns compared to everyone else, where it's you kind of focus more on the like hand to hand combat that they do with their weapons, and then the gun is sort of the side thing. And for the two of them, I feel like even though Nora, of course, transformed her grenade launcher into the hammer and used that most, I feel like with it starting off as the grenade launcher, Ren and Nora are more of the gun based characters. So I really appreciate that for the two of them. And we got to see Jean and Pyrrha team up as sort of the sword and shield type characters, which is really sweet. And then we got to see Jean. Of course, he becomes the leader of Team Juniper, and we see him start that when he's kind of giving orders after Ren shoots up the tail of the scorpion. He's like Pyrrha. Like he basically tells her to attack the weak spot, and she does her little Captain America move, which I really enjoyed. And he like chopped the tail off and flew right back to her, and then he tells Nora to get it, and they defeat the scorpion, and I just really love how they did it. And also I love the song that kicks in when they're fighting. So of course, like pretty much every other song aside from the opening, that probably hasn't actually been released yet, but like all the other songs that play at the end of the episodes. I can't wait for that one to come out because I really enjoyed that one. So it was a great song to come in. Like I said, we got the two separate teams, and I really enjoyed that they all kind of came together in the very beginning, which was nice. I didn't expect Ren and Nora to come in, and it just brought everyone together really quick. It didn't waste any time where they talk too much. And the little bit of story that we do get is in the very beginning, and it's mostly between Ruby and Weiss. And I really appreciate that. It seems sort of quick, but at the same time, when you look over the past couple episodes, they've just been arguing, back and forth, and their arguing hasn't really helped either of them prove who they really are. And they finally talk that out when Weiss saves Ruby, and she says, Weiss says, if you stop trying to show off, I'll be nicer. And Ruby pretty much explains herself. She doesn't want to brag or anything. She just wants to prove to Weiss that she can handle herself and that she can actually be a useful member of the team. So it was really cool that that um, bit of dialogue actually came from Weiss, saving Ruby, who kind of was, she ran off on her own because she thought she could defeat the Scorpion, and then she kind of got trapped because the bird shot all the feathers down. So, I really appreciated that, and of course, it leads into them kind of being closer. I wouldn't exactly say they're friends already, but they're much closer, obviously, than they were in the last couple of episodes. And by the end of the episode, when they finally form Team RWBY, you see Weiss's face. She isn't exactly upset. She's more shocked, but it seems like she's in sort of it's more of a neutral state than happy or mad or anything. So I really appreciate that she isn't just mad at Ruby. It's cool that they were able to have their moment in the beginning, so that when they become the team, they're already kind of at least not enemies anymore. They're at least acquaintances, I guess. So I really appreciated how they kind of worked through that in the beginning. And so, once the teams, like I said, they split up, we get all the cool action scenes, all the characters, going left and right, just showing all of their skills, which is, great. And, once, Nora and Jean get over to the Scorpion, and, Nora knocks into Blake, we get Blake, who basically splits off and goes back to the primary team. And we get to see her do sort of like a shadow step type duplicating move, where she kind of like shoots from herself into a new location, which I really love that move. I thought it was really cool. I thought she kind of just like split off, but it was kind of the same thing. Like she kind of does like an air dash, and it just looked really sweet. She's like attacking the bird and stuff, and then she lands. And so Ruby, Weiss, Blake, and Yang end up finding the main, I guess, main villain, which is the giant bird. And the idea that Ruby came up with was, of course, it ended up being really cool how they, played it out. And of course, before that, the girls are basically all standing in a line and they're just firing everything they have at this bird. And then when Ruby comes up with her idea, the girls distracted, and Yang and Blake set up like sort of a bungee cord, and Ruby like shoots into the cord, and then we get to see, like I said, we get to see new powers. We get to see a new ability from Weiss where she actually holds Ruby in place for a few seconds, and it looked really cool. She had it, like they showed her ability where she jumps a lot in this episode. When you really think about it, she does a lot of like the super jumps and things like that. And we get to see the insignia come up, and it holds Ruby in place for a little bit, and it starts off white, then changes black. So it's kind of cool to see that. If it's the plain white version, it's basically a super jump, but if it's black, then it turns into sort of like a stasis, I would say, and it holds Ruby in place. And I love the line when after White says, of course you'd come up with this, and Ruby says, can you hit the target? And White says, can I? And then they pause, and Ruby's like, oh, can you? And she's like, of course I can. And so she shoots her off, and it was really cool how they did it, because it wasn't just Ruby, or White shoots Ruby off through the air. White shoots Ruby, and then she shoots her gun continuously to further her momentum. And when she gets to the bird, it's not just like a quick decapitation or anything. She gets the bird, and like she lands on the cliff, and then Weiss creates like a trail, pretty much like a speed trail, and she shoots up and she goes faster once again using the gun, and when she hits the top, she just decapitates the bird. It was a really cool use of the gun and the scythe at the same time, because I feel like we didn't really get to see that, since the series began. Of course we got it in the original trailer, but I don't feel like we got to see that, nearly as much in the episodes. When she's fighting, she'll shoot and then she'll attack, but it didn't seem like she'd sort of use it, in the same way, as much as she did in this episode. And like I said, with everyone fighting, sort of the big villains, we got to see all the cool combinations. A lot of stuff from Yang we got to see before when she kind of fought the bear, and it was really cool to see her, just being her. It was still kind of funny, and like I said, we got to see a lot more of Blake. We got to see, her, like the shadow stuff. Obviously me making up names, but we got to see her do her moves. Everyone else who didn't really get a ton of time for, as far as actually fighting and things like that, which is really no one, until this episode. So it was great to see everyone do their moves and, actually team up, into the, primary team, and then of course Jean and the secondary team. So once they defeat the bird, it goes right into the ending ceremony. And then that's when we get the first team, which is Team Cardinal. And something I didn't mention in my review for the other episodes when they first go into the Emerald Forest is that, which I actually didn't do because that was like right before I actually did the reviews. But when they were all getting launched into the air, one of the characters from Team Cardinal, or I believe two of them, and they were the first two, and I can't remember their names, but it's the guy who's pretty much looks like he's in like full body armor, and then the guy with like the mohawk and like the sort of shoulder piece. I believe both of them are shown when the characters are getting launched in the air, and with them obviously being mentioned, as the first team, which of course was to kind of get them out of the way, they are still mentioned by name. So obviously they will come into play, and the first thought that I had was they'd actually end up turning evil, and I don't really know why, but something just about their look, it just seemed like, the leader, like I said, he's in like full body armor and stuff, and then the other guy has like the shoulder patch. It kind of made me think back to episode 1, when it's like sort of a news story on the television, and they talk about like the White Fang, I believe they're called, and they used to be a really peaceful group, but now they're kind of like a terrorist group, and it just made me think, they might somehow be involved with that group, or they'll just end up, working with the bad guys in some way. So it was really interesting that, they are actually named by name, and we get Team Cardinal in the very beginning. So it's just interesting to see how that's gonna, play into the rest of the series. And so of course after that we get Team Juniper, and then we get Team RWBY. And once the ceremony is complete, we finally get back to, the other side of the series. The teams are created, so now we're getting into what's really the main set. This is sort of the first 8 episodes really are kind of like the precursor to the main series. So now we're getting back into the bad guys. We finally get to see the villain from episode 1, whose name once again I can't remember. And clearly, from the first episode and still now, his main goal is collecting dust. And so he has all these gems, and he's clearly going to do something. You see the map behind him, and it of course zooms in on that map. So whatever his plan is, it encompasses, a very large chunk of, the planet. And, there's a ton of stuff. I love some of the little lines, it says like dumb cops in one area. And, there's like X's and circles, and Beacon is, off to the right. And, there's a line and a circle drawn to it. So they know where the school is, of course. They know, where certain, they know where cops are, and they know certain important aspects that they need to know in order to do whatever it is that they're planning to do. And of course, when I say they, I do mean, the guy we actually get to see, and whoever the evil witch is in episode 1, whose face we don't get to see even in the opening of the episodes. We don't get to see her face. So I feel like she might end up being like a sister to Glinda Goodwitch, or somehow she's related to one of the characters maybe. And I feel like that's why we don't really get to see her face, because she'll actually look like one of the other characters in the game or in the series. Sorry, and I'm just it's interesting that that could possibly be a thing. Of course, I'm just speculating based off of random ideas, but overall, I really loved the episode. Like I said, it wasn't as story based as I thought it was gonna be, and of course, it was. It was much longer than I would have ever expected it to be. But I definitely loved the episode. I watched it twice before I did the review, just because like I enjoyed the episode so much, and it was a great action based episode. But it really had cool story elements. But definitely my favorite part was getting to see everyone's cool abilities. And like I said, my favorite thing was actually just getting to see Nora be her, because Nora didn't really, she hasn't really had anything since I believe episode 4 when she was introduced with Ren. And obviously, she was the funny one and he was the really calm one. So it was really great to see her come in. And like I said, we got to see both sides of her weapon. And it was great to see that she, even in combat, is still that really silly calm character. So I really love that. Obviously, comment below, let me know. I guess question of the week for this episode, I don't know if I'll start doing that, but for this one, definitely tell me what was your, I guess, favorite reveal for this episode. Favorite move, or just favorite power, anything like that. Like I said, Blake's shadow step moves, which I really love ninja characters, but I don't know, for some reason, just Nora being her was my favorite thing for this episode. So comment below, let me know your favorite part of this episode. And now that we're getting back into, or now that we're getting into what is going to be like the main story for the series, where do you think it's really going to go starting next week? Thanks for watching.